Welcome to Books on Air. I'm Suzanne Harris. Books on Air is a series where we do a deep dive into the writer's passion. We talk about why they wrote the book, what their writing process is like, and what they hope their readers will take away from the book. You, dear listeners, get a glimpse behind the curtain, if you will. Joining me today is someone I cannot wait to introduce you to. His name is Dr. Barry G. WREN, and he has written a book called Sex for Females Only. Barry, now that we have their attention, welcome to Books on Air, and it's my pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Suzanne, when I read your work, I'm always impressed, and I just love to meet you somewhere where we could get together and have a cup of coffee and talk over so many things.
I can think of nothing that would be more delightful. We'll have to make do with being across the pond from each other today, I'm afraid.
Yes.
You know,
I've loved going to, every time I've been to the United States, I've loved going there. And, of course, I lived in Chicago for 6 months, so I'm very familiar with American background and activity, and I enjoyed it as well. But I'm looking forward to getting to Texas. Is it now that you live in?
Yes. Yes.
I've only been to Texas on a fly in and fly out, so I don't really know Texas as much as I know California or in that area, and of course up in the northeast of the United States. But no, I enjoy it. It's good.
Well, let's talk about the book, because I know people are saying, wait a minute, the title of this book is Sex, and what does it mean for females only? So I want to make sure they understand this is not some kind of sex manual. This is something that's very different. Why did you decide to write this book now? What made you do it now, Barry?
Well, the problem that people were bringing up so often is that there was a big difference between males and females, and they talked about it as being gender inequality. Well, that's probably quite true. There is some gender inequality, but not through brains or anything else like that. But there are two separate races of people. The females are different to the males in so many different ways. And I think we should regard them as being like horses, is a good example. A lot of people have draft horses, which are essential for ploughing and doing heavy work around a farm of any kind. But there are others have horses for race horses. And you would never use a racehorse to plough a paddock anymore. You'd use a draft horse to run in some of the great race horses, races. So we've got the same problem between females and males. And people try to measure one against the other. You can't do that. We have to, for females, we must measure females against other females. And that's the only way to look at it. Never involve a male as an opposition person. They work together, but they shouldn't be compared. So I thought, how did we do this? And I decided to go back into history and find out exactly what happened over those thousands of years. So I started about 5,000 years ago, looking at what was happening there. And it's exactly the same as what's happening now. We have the same problems. It's, of course, society and advances in technology have made a lot of differences, but we still have this same problem. Males are males, and they should be compared to males. And females are very beautiful people, and they change over a period of time because of the hormones that they're producing. And that's really it. I've tried to get the picture, and I hope in the book that I've got a picture of how things change, but they don't really change.
Exactly.
If you understand that.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And
There's,
I thought it was just so interesting. I sat down and began to read the excerpt that's on Amazon, and you pulled me right in. I couldn't stop, and until the excerpt stopped, and I thought, wait a moment, I really want to know more about this, because you've done a great deal of research. How long did this take you to write the book?
all my life, actually. I mean, I've been... all the thoughts that are in that book, I've had them for literally close on 50, 60 years, but I never put them down as I have done this time. And then I realized that it's really, I'm not trying to persuade people to do something different. I just want them to understand, so each person can look at it from their point of view and get a bit of background. So it was really a matter of trying to put some background. When I was teaching at university with students, I never said how much I knew about a particular problem. I tried to give them problems and said, how would you approach it? So I let them do all the hard work. And the same in this book. I'm not trying to draw some great final sort of effort out of it. I just want people to understand and think about it themselves so they will change as they want to change. That's what I hope they will do, at any rate.
You're coming at this from a medical perspective because you practiced as an obstetrician and a gynecologist there in Australia for many years, right?
That's correct, yes, indeed. But I did... A lot of my work, of course, was done in United Kingdom and in Nigeria and some of it in America, but the most of it was done in Australia.
I just thought it was so interesting that you talked about the fact that the older man, and we're not talking, we could talk about this 5,000 years ago, and we can talk about this in 2024. The older man is looking at the younger, nubile female. And when I read this statistic that you said, their useful life was regarded as those years between 12 and 30 years of age. Of course, those are the most fertile years, I suppose, for a woman. Is that right?
That's exactly so. And not only is it the most fertile time for a woman, but the babies born growing up from mothers in that age group appear to be more intelligent and have lesser long-term defects, if you like. I don't think we all have defects, but there are a lot of things which are... I've got two granddaughters, I can say, break in here, two granddaughters who are now in their mid-20s. And I keep on saying, look, have a baby now, have your babies now. This is the best eggs you'll ever have. You know, and it's very hard, but they haven't yet done that either one. I don't have any great-grandchildren yet, but I've been urging them to go and do so quickly. And I would try to get that point across to everybody. The best, most fertile women and the best babies are those born between the ages of, to the mothers, between 18 and 30 years of age. I know that a lot of mothers are waiting until they put their baby off until they've got themselves some security with more money or a house or whatever it may be. But sometimes that's not a good idea. It becomes very difficult for older women to become pregnant. They've got fewer eggs. You run out of eggs around about the age of 45. So there's not too much time, actually. If you wait till after 30, you've only got 10 or 15 years. So I'm trying to get that point across. It's very important that people understand it. And I hope it comes out of somewhere in that book of mine. I've said something about a couple of chapters about how hormones and eggs are related to the beauty of a woman, a nubile beauty. And that's it.
Of course, when I was reading it, I couldn't help but think of women like Anne Boleyn, who Henry VIII wooed, threw away his wife, wooed her, married her, and then she could not produce the heir that he wanted. And so what did he do? He cut off her head. And I think that's an example of the kind of thing that you were talking about in the book. The fact that the man desires the younger woman, and if she can't produce, now this is historical, you've done your research, and if she couldn't produce, or as she got older, he would often trade her in for the proverbial younger model. Am I understanding what you wrote?
Yes, exactly so. That's not very much different now, by the way. I see lots of people, older men in their 50, 60, 70 years of age, marrying women who are 20 and 30 years younger because they're not only very beautiful, but they're more likely to produce an heir for them. And that's happening around, and I'm sure that you will know somebody or some couples that have that sort of relationship. It's nice to have it, by the way. In my age now, in 90s, I don't look to procreate anybody, any other children, but I do enjoy my friends, my female friends, and almost, apart from the guys I play golf with, most of my friends are female. And I enjoy their company, and it's marvellous to see them come in. And they're all many years younger than me. There are some of them in their 30s, their 40s, and so on like that. I enjoy their company. It's good. But I'm not interested in procreation anymore. So I don't have that problem.
Oh, Barry. You're making me blush over here, Barry.
I love females. I love beautiful young females. As I said, I have two granddaughters, and they really are beautiful. I mean, everybody says how gorgeous they are. They are. But I wish they'd go on and have some children. Anyway.
When you were writing this book, when you were writing this book, who did you think you wanted to have read it? Who was your audience in your head?
I wanted both men and women to read it to understand that this problem, the problem in the society at present is gender inequality, where they think, women are as good as men. They're different to men. We don't have to think about them being as good at doing something like that. We have two entirely different races of humans. And I just wanted to get the message over to them that there is no real difference in any of the other features at all, that women are women and they just get older, unfortunately, without any hormones. I wanted them to understand that so women could continue producing some, they don't produce it, they'll buy it and get their doctor to give them the right hormones to maintain their body. All those things. I mean, it's so complex to think about why we need to be doing this, but people have to have knowledge. And unfortunately, we don't get too many people at school being taught about what happens to their body properly. That hormones and so on all play this important part. I'm sorry, I'm having a little dissertation there about my own sort of talks about education, and I've been involved in it for so long, and I'm going to be heading off in the wrong direction. I'm sorry about that.
That's quite all right, Barry. That's quite all right. Because I agree with you. I think that it's important that people get that kind of information, and they may not be getting it in school. One thing that I thought was very, very interesting was your choice for the cover of the book. It's 8 young women, And I read in the book that the cover that you chose, it's 4 women on one line and 4 women on the other, and they have on sort of a bikini-looking outfit, and it's a 3rd century ceramic that's in the floor of the gymnasium in a Roman villa in Sicily. Barry, where did you find
exactly
this
right.
piece? Where did you find this piece, and how did you choose it?
It's one of the many times that my wife and I we used to go to Italy every year, and we went to Sicily 2 or 3 times. And in Sicily is the Piazza Armerina, which is a village, I should say, but there was a villa there owned by a very wealthy Sicilian. But on the floor of his gymnasium, he had the inscription of the mosaic there. I took a photograph of it and brought it home with me as to what it was. And when I went to have this book, I sent the photograph to the publishers, and they said, we'll put a drawing of that in. I was a little upset that they didn't put the actual photograph in, but the photograph was taken, and it showed that. The other thing which is there, I'm pleased that you brought this point up. In those years, and it's no different now, of course, women develop breasts, and some of their breasts are large and tend to hang down, be a bit of a nuisance if you're going to be an athlete somewhere or do something, your breast hangs down. But in those days, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, they didn't have brassieres. They were developed around about the 17th century, but women used to bind their breasts with a firm strip of cloth around their breasts to stop the breast bumping up and down as they played or did some gymnastic or something like that. So the binding of their breasts was there, not as a hiding the breast away, but to hold it from bobbing up and down as they played or did some games or did something there. And the same thing around their waist. They put a strip of this cloth around their waist and brought the ends of that up between their legs so that their labia and vagina was hidden from view. But it was easily undone and taken off. So a lot of these women started a particular gymnastic activity with binding of the cloth around their breasts and around their genital region, but either by the cloth or falling off, or some of the spectators pulling the cloth off and exposing them there for sexual activity. That was a fairly common occurrence. And it's very interesting. I thought it made a good view of what it was like to see women in those days. It struck me that the clothing that they were wearing in that particular scene that's on the floor of the gymnasium was very similar to what you see down at Bondi Beach here in Sydney. On any Sunday afternoon or sunny afternoon, you see the girls with very scanty clothing on, and those of larger breasts have larger brassieres on at present. But it's not very much different. Nothing really changes. That's the big thing. It was there thousands of years ago, and it's exactly the same process now.
Sex is sex.
Yeah, sex is sex, and it'll stay there for a long time. You know that.
Exactly.
We don't have no other way of procreation, and it's an enjoyable experience, by the way. I mean, but I didn't put a lot of people looking at the title thought I was going to have a book full of some sort of salacious sexual activity. I avoided anything like that. And it's not just to say, how good is sex? And I didn't put anything salacious in. I wasn't trying to attract some sort of problem, if you like, in the start of the book. I want people to understand that sex is sex, and it's there to stay.
And I really reacted to it as historical perspective, because you have done so much research, and obviously there are footnotes everywhere. I mean, you have all kinds of citations, so it's obvious to me that this is a well-researched book. And I'm sure that we have attracted the attention of our listeners, and they want to know where they can find it. So let me once again give you the title. It's very easy. It's just Sex, S-E-X with an exclamation point, and then it's open parentheses, and it says, for females only, close parentheses, by Barry, B-A-R-R-Y, WREN, W-R-E-N. And the book is available on Amazon. And I think you could probably, if you can't find it on Amazon, or if you prefer not to use Amazon, I think you could probably just put in Barry's name and the title of the book, and where it's available would come up. Do you think that's fair to say, Barry?
Yes, indeed. I'm sure it will. Some of my relatives here in Australia have already done something like that, and they say most of them got it from Amazon, but there was a couple of them got it from some other source. I didn't actually remember what the other sources were. I didn't take too much notice. I was just happy that they bought the book. That was the important point. And I'm very happy to talk about my book, by the way. I don't have any objection to people criticising it. I'm sure there will be people who are critical about it. But it's really a matter of trying to get the history of events taking place, rather than try to subject people to a method of education. It's my idea of education is to provide problems and that people solve them.
Personally, when I began to read your writing, I found it interesting, matter of fact, intelligent, articulate, and informative. I mean, I found it quite interesting. I didn't want to stop when the excerpt stopped, and I think perhaps our listeners.
That's nice of you.
No, it's true.
That's...
It's true. I wanted more.
Well, somebody else has been trying to get me to write not a sequel, but I've written another section altogether, looking at different aspects of sexuality, mainly to do with the creation of a person, how a woman is created. And that's a little bit more complex and more scientific, but I haven't yet decided. As I say, I'm 93, and I think I'm doing very well to have people like you and other people around the world say, oh, that was a good book, and I'm always proud of it and very, very happy about it. I hope that other people enjoy it.
Well, it's not like this is your first book. You've written 26 books. When I read that,
that's right.
I was quite surprised. Are they all on medical topics, or is it a variety?
Oh, no. The name WREN was a very, very famous name in UK, in United Kingdom. Christopher Wren was a great architect, but not only was he a great architect, he was a great anatomist, and he was good in mathematics as well. So fascinating just to know about this man. He went to had just interesting alone. At the age of 14, he was at university, and at the age of 21, he was elected as a professor of astrology. I think it was astrology, but anyway, he was so brilliant. He was not one of my ancestors, unfortunately. We not directly descended, but we think that his father had two or three other sons, and we think that we might be connected to some of those people there. But the Wren family was pretty famous over a period of time, so I wrote a story about the Wrens and how they came to Australia. Unfortunately, two of them came out as convicts. They were caught stealing money from a merchant. They were sentenced to be hanged. That was in 1818, and they eventually got away from the hanging part and got sent out to Australia, and that's where we started. So I wrote a book about them.
Well, you have just been delightful, and I always like for the author, everybody's work is very important to them. It doesn't matter whatever the work is, whether it's a scholarly work like yours or even a children's book. Authors are very passionate about what they write because it's quite a process to write one book, much less 26. And I was wondering, when our listeners become readers, what thought would you like for them to take when they sit down and read a copy of Sex for Females Only? When they close that back cover for the last time, what do you want them to take with them, Barry?
The one thing I want them to take is that when a young girl, a 10 or 11-year-old girl, ends up being a beautiful adolescent and young woman, that occurs following a cascade of hormones which occur, and it's that cascade of hormones finishes when her ovaries run out of eggs. And after that, she doesn't have all those hormones which had a positive effect on her body. And the thing to do is she can get those same hormones given to her, which will maintain. I won't make her young again, but they will maintain the cells so they don't deteriorate. I want her to understand that she doesn't have to give up at the age of 45 or 55 or whatever it may be, but that she can maintain good therapy, good feelings, good body, good attitude, by maintaining hormones. In exactly the same way as a diabetic takes insulin and needs that insulin to manage her sugar system. But there's a whole lot of things there. I want the women to go away thinking, I think I'll go and see my doctor about getting some hormones. And that's what I want.
You have been delightful, informative, intelligent, and so much fun to talk to. Thank you, Barry Wren, for being my guest on Books on Air. It's just been my delight and pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, Suzanne, it's so nice of you to ask me to be there, and I'm delighted. And one day I'll get across and I'll meet you and we'll have a cup of coffee and we'll talk about sex.
That's a deal, my friend. That's a deal. You've been listening to Books on Air, brought to you on webtalkradio.net. You can also hear this podcast on Apple, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. Remember, keep reading, keep writing, and keep telling your stories. Thank you so very much for listening.